So in this video, I'm going to talk about a few strategies I use to analyze a new city that you want to invest in. Most of us usually invest in the cities that we live in, or cities that we have studied in, or cities that we have some sort of attachment one way or other, or cities that we had whatever connection we had to spend a significant amount of time. So you really know ins and out of that city, and it's very easy to spot what properties you want to invest in those cities because you have spent so much time analyzing those cities. So this video is for someone who's want to invest in a brand new city. City you have never visited, probably never heard about it. It's not even nearby that you can drive there within an hour or two. How do you approach that sort of investment? I haven't thought about these strategies before, but I met a friend of mine who really walked me through this entire process. From last few weeks, I've been visiting with her different cities, and then she kind of gives me her example how she goes about these different cities, how she invests. She's probably a brilliant investor. I'll mention her ID link in the description or whatever way it is, but I'll mention her somewhere in the video. Go check her out. She has done some amazing work in life in general with real estate investment, not only real estate investment but as a female entrepreneur. I think she's just an absolute hustler. I respect her for that. And now let's go on with the video again. So my name is Mohit Kanyan. If you're seeing this video, you are on my channel, so please subscribe, like, comment on these videos, and do let me know if you like my content, or if content you want me to produce moving forward, how often you want me to produce it, or if you have any sort of feedback, please feel free to give me that feedback. You can reach out to me on Instagram, LinkedIn. These are the two platforms I'm usually active on, but wherever you can find me, just Google me. I'm sure you can find a way to reach out to me. So let's start with the video. So how do you analyze a new city, a brand new city that you have never visited and you want to invest in that city? So how do you go about it? So first step is go in that city and spend some time. When I say spend some time, it doesn't have to be to live there for months, but be there at least for a week or two. Fly out there if you can, drive there if it's at a driving distance, few hours drive, go there, spend at least minimum a week there, and then look for specific things in the city. So few of the things that I have shortlisted for how I analyze a city is, hey, what was the number of, especially this is true in the Canadian regards, I don't know about some of the US cities, probably like the same formula will implement. I think these are probably the fundamental things we're going to talk about. One is population growth in that city. What amount of new immigrants are moving into the city, and if they are moving, are they staying in the city, or it's just a transition period? They might stay there for a few months, then move on to a next destination. So that's the number one factor. What is the population growth in there? Make sure do not get fooled by the last few years number. Make sure you check the entire trend from last 7 to 8 years of data, so it kind of gives you a better quality. Because what happened during COVID, a lot of people moved into a cities, now they're moving back out of that city. So you want to be aware of that factor as well. It's not a COVID thing, it's something which is real time and sustainable in that city. So what is the population growth? That's number one factor. Second factor is what sort of infrastructure is out there for universities and colleges. So that's something will attract a lot of international students. That's something is very common in Canada. If the city has a university, if it doesn't have a university, it has a college, how many campuses are there, and then what sort of student come in those campuses? Is it domestic population of student, or is it international students are coming? If there is a good balance of both, that's the best case scenario. The third part, you want to look at students who graduate from those cities or the universities and colleges. Do they tend to stay in the city? Is there enough jobs to sustain that population, or those people just study there and then they move out of it? Look for those trends. See how many students. You can't really get any exact number of it, but if you spend enough time, talk to enough students who live in that area, or go to those settings, just reach out to some people on social media. I'm sure they can give you that information, and look for those, like, is it the population which comes into the city in form of international students or like the domestic student? Do they tend to stay in that city, or the majority of them will move out? Some will move out regardless of the job opportunities in that city, but there is a good chunk of it will stay if they get the opportunity to work in the same city where they are studying. So that's another trend that you look for. And then the fourth one that you look for is infrastructure in the cities. This is something very important, and a lot of people ignore this part. Like, hey, what sort of transport system in the city? How well the suburbs are connected to the, let's say, the downtown core of the city? Transit are the only way of transportation. How far it is if someone wants to reach there? Is Uber readily available in every part of the city? Those small things that you really want to be comfortable. These are the few things that you can check. Like, hey, just go on Kijiji, go on Facebook Marketplace, see the rental in the property. Let's say if someone has rented their property which is 10 minutes from the downtown core of the cities, and people are still responding to that ad, or applying for that. So that means this transportation system is still there. Not everyone will need a job to go to travel to the different places of their workplace. If transportation system is there, that's a huge advantage to a city and will help you a lot more in terms of analyzing those deals in that city. So once the city qualifies, once the city is a tick on all four criteria, then you go ahead and start looking into property pricing. What is the price difference? What is the cash flow? What is the average rent? Easiest ways to calculate it: see the average rent of the city. If it's look for the houses which you can rent out the upstairs separate, be it 3 or 4 bedroom, or the basement as a separate unit. That's the best case scenario. Look for properties like that. Ideally a duplex. Start with that. That's a safe investment to make, and then you can eventually double down on it once you see how it turns out to be. And then do your due diligence on the rental market in that city. What sort of potential is there? Run your numbers. Make sure you calculate the property tax, any sort of miscellaneous expenses that could happen, in there, and then do the cash flow numbers. If the numbers make sense after all this exercise, then you're good to start in that city. So some cities, there's certain exceptions to this formula. Like there are certain cities which are those are tourist places. Up north there's tons of them, like whole the Muskoka, like the community that's like that. Those cities doesn't have a college or whatnot, but they are very tourist friendly. So these are the cities that you can invest in regardless of these factors. But at the same time, you want to make sure is whatever property you buy, what are the Airbnb rules for the local city rules for the Airbnb. Make sure you can well play within those rules in order to maximize your property's potential. And those rules are ever changing, but at the same time, in the current market, go and talk to the city officials, see what they are planning to do with those Airbnb rules, if something that you can hold on to for that long. And those properties will appreciate just because of the destination of the property, and people won't just stop going to those properties. Just gonna figure out a way to play within those rules that the city set forward from there on. So these are some exceptions to those cities which are tourist places, cities which are most sought after locations. Obviously those cities won't have a college just because of how small those cities are, but at the same time their other potentials are there in terms of short-term rentals in those cities. So by all means go invest in those cities. But if you are someone a long-term investor, these are the few criteria that I mentioned before in the video. These are the few criteria that you want to make sure the city stands out in these criteria. If they fulfill that criteria, go in those cities, invest in that city. So that's something that I have learned from my own experience, talking to some of my fellow investors who does go around few hours out of the city and invest in cities like this. So far I have only invested in the city I have lived in, or I'm very well aware of those markets. But now I think that's the next chapter of my real estate journey as well. Go out of those cities which I haven't lived in or I haven't had a lot of knowledge, but I'm gonna go there, share with you some of the other lessons. But these are the few things that I have recollected so far from the existing investors who've been doing it, and whatever knowledge I have based on my experience with talking to those investors, and that's how they analyze those cities. So make sure you do this due diligence before you go ahead and invest in any of the cities like this. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have watched this far, great, thank you so much. And please give me a shout out, share these videos on your other social media channel. Do hit a subscribe and like these videos, and let me know if you have any feedback for me. How can I improve from here on, or what sort of content you want me to produce more of.